Welcome to the Clack Shack, and weather's been a little weird today. Started out the day, my plan was to go up to the mill and mill some lumber for some of the stove covers and stuff like that I have ordered. But I got sidetracked, got to working on a website, so I now have theclackshack.com. The website is guys, it's basically a shell right now that just kind of links all of the YouTube channel, the Facebook, and the Etsy channel all together. It's a work in progress, so bear with me on that. But a lot of things have changed since I started doing the YouTube videos. It's gotten a little bigger, and I'm just trying to accommodate for all the moving parts. So as you can tell, typical Alabama afternoon shower today. It's a little cooler, so I cut the fans off. I could actually deal with the heat. I did actually get around to taking a patch that I was cutting last night and making myself putting it on my floppy hat. For those of you that don't work outside, this is a floppy hat and this is a ear saver. So if you can bring yourself to wear one, it's a good idea. But today, two of my hobbies are going to actually three of my hobbies are going to kind of collide in this video. I've got some cedar boards that I milled a few weeks ago and dried, and I did a bee feeder for myself the other day, and one of the followers of the channel mentioned to me, and I think it was on Facebook maybe, that they would like one to order for a friend. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an existing blueprint that I have that I use to make my own bee feeders for the honeybees, and I'm going to show you the process that I go through to make those. Step one, of course, you can watch one of my other videos if you want to see it. I've got a couple of videos where I was milling up some cedar. Now I don't know for sure if it was this particular board of cedar, but more than likely it was, because this is the last batch that I put in the kiln and dried. So what I've got here is I've got a piece of cedar that came off the mill. Brought it into the shop, and of course I took and run it through the planer to go ahead and get it really smooth and get all those saw marks out of it. And I've planed it down to a 1/4 inch thickness. Coincidentally, with bees and beehives, typically they say that a bee needs a 1/4 of an inch of space to move from point A to point B. Any more than that, and they'll put propolis, which is like basically caulk or glue, and they'll start trying to do some weird stuff with it. So I've used that theory in my beehives that I've made, is to just give them a 1/4 of an inch to up to 3/8, but typically I stick with around a 1/4 of an inch of space for the bee to travel. This wood is a 1/4 of an inch thick, and so the way we're going to make this feeder is I'm going to cut 4 pieces of wood with the laser so that it's perfect. All the holes are where I want them, and then we can put it together. This isn't the best piece of cedar I've ever had, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to selectively pick out spots on this board that I can put into the laser and cut those layers out. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've gotten to where I just wear my laser glasses for everything. That way I don't forget to put them on, because I did catch myself one day wearing safety glasses, and I looked at the laser thinking that I had my laser glasses on. So kind of a risky thing when you work around lasers. So now I just wear them for everything. But I'm just going to square this up. I don't throw this away, because I can make a keychain. I can make a lot of stuff out of this. So you'll see just random little pieces of wood laying around the shop, and that's why, because I don't want to throw that away, and then tomorrow I need a 6x3 piece of wood to cut a keychain out of, and I threw that away already. So the XTool, the base on the XTool, generally I try to stay around 16 inches with the wood that I'm going to be burning from, to try to accommodate so it's not too crowded. And I've got this big knot right here. So what I'm going to do is, that's going to give me a decent size of wood that I should be able to make 2 pieces of this feeder out of. But I'm going to split that knot and put it near the edge of the wood, and then probably come back here and take this off, and then this will go in the scrap pile as well to be used later. So I should be able to get 2 pieces of the feeder out of that piece. And then I'm going to slide over, like I said, these knots You do not want to try to cut one of these knots with a laser. These things are ridiculously hard. Like I said, not throwing it away because there is a couple of inches of usable space on that. All right, so then I'm gonna come on over here. Same thing, I got a little knot right here. I'm gonna put that guy in the cut. That'll give me enough room here, hopefully, to make 2 more slabs. And so that should give me 4 pieces of this feeder so far. I'm gonna flip this around. The white wood that you see on cedar, that is sapwood. And although it's pretty for indoor stuff and things that aren't gonna be in the weather, I don't like using it on something that's gonna be outside. I like to stick with as much heartwood as I can. I'm gonna go ahead and probably knock this off. I'd say probably about right there. It'll keep me out of the sapwood on my burn. And I'm gonna hang on to this piece. It's got a little line, little check mark right there where the log's splitting, so you know I can still use that for keychains. And then this piece here, it's got some cool grain on it and the wave patterns that are in it. So I want to try to work that into this build because I honestly, I think I would like to put that one to where you can see it from the top because it's got that cool grain. So what I'm going to do on this one, I know I can't get 2 out of this because I got that and I got this big knot here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this over big enough to make one piece of my feeder out of. And while we're here, just for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and get 1 more board out of the end of this. Just to make sure I've got enough to make all the pieces I need for that feeder. Now this piece, you guessed it, it stays over here just in case. So that's the wood that we're going to be using for this laser project. And if you look, these are 1/4 inch pieces, so of course 4 of them makes it 1 inch thick. All right, here we are at the laser, and I'm gonna start with this little small piece right here. This is, it's just straight grain. It's not got a whole lot of knots on it. When you're working with any wood, but especially the cedar, I know how hard these little knots are. So when I start to frame this out and get this ready to cut, I'm going to try to avoid cutting through those if I can. If I can avoid it, then I'll do it, and if I have to take and score it with a knife or whatever, that's fine. Worst case, I take it to the bandsaw and I can bandsaw through it. But I'm gonna try to avoid that. So what I'm gonna do to start with, of course, is I'm gonna focus the XTool D1 on this piece of cedar to make sure that I'm clear. I know that this wood is flat because I just took it out of the planer, but one thing that I have learned with dealing with especially some of the thinner plywoods, when you do set your focus, it's not a bad idea if you've got any kind of waves or bows in your wood. It's not a bad idea to just kind of move that laser around that piece of wood and just make sure it doesn't hit anywhere, because I have had it happen to where as wood heated up, it expanded and it bowed a little. And when you're halfway through an hour-long burn and that piece of wood stands up a little and the laser catches it and pushes it as it's trying to engrave it, that is that'll make you angry. It'll make you very angry. So I always try to just, the cedar I'm not worried about. I just took this stuff out of the planer and it's fine. But just a little tip for some of you guys with the laser. You may want to move that around, especially if you've got one of those wonky pieces that wants to bow. So I've got that in there. I'm gonna go ahead and push my laser back to the home position, all the way back, all the way to the left. That'll avoid me having to rehome it. And what I'm gonna do is, I've got that file saved already, so I don't have to build the file. I'm just gonna go in and open up my beef feeder file. There's multiple pieces to this beef feeder, so I'm gonna have to just pick one piece to burn, and then I'll have to put another piece of wood in and do another piece, another piece, another piece. And that's why, like I said, these things aren't as cheap as the plastic ones that are made in China, because it's a lot of work involved for me. So what I'm going to do, I've got my design pulled up, and the design actually only contains 4 pieces. So I'm going to move that down, and because it was definitely not in the center according to my camera, and get this thing lined up. Now, like I said, try to avoid the knots in the material if you can. And I'm gonna go ahead and frame that guy out and see how that looks. It should be pretty good. Like I said, I've had really good luck with my camera setup here lately. I've got some things that I'm going to be trying in the future, just some little tweaks. But right now, I am pleased with the camera setup, and I have a video on that if you haven't already seen it and you're curious as to what I'm running. The only thing I see with this piece of wood is it's got a little bit of a bad spot right in the edge of where the feeder goes together. So I'm gonna try to slide this as far to the left as I can without getting into that knot. But I'm probably still gonna be getting into some of that knot wood. So I'm gonna rock with that and see how it goes. Worst case, this little bad piece, we can turn it around to the back. It is a wood feeder. It is not gonna be free of imperfection. So I'm gonna go ahead and get everything turned on, and I'm gonna start that burn. Now, the way this works, the way my design works, is these plates all have holes in them that are a specific size, and they fit my wood dowels that I use. These wood dowels that I use in a lot of my builds, these are what will hold this thing together. This and a little bit of wood glue will hold this thing together once it's completed. And the laser is going to cut out the entire shape that I need to cut, as well as the holes for these wood dowels. Very similar to the honeycomb jig design that I did for the honeycomb spacers. It's very similar to that in the way that it goes together. Is you just put the glue on there. Once you get the glue on there, you stack those pieces up, put this pin through there, clamp it if you prefer, if you want, or either let's lay something heavy on it, and it's done. Try to keep my designs as simple as I can. But this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to stop the camera and I'll check back with you once it's done. All right, the first burn is over, and the byproduct, you get these little rounds of cedar. And here is that goes in the burn pile, of course. That is useless. But this is the first piece of this build, and this will be the second layer in. And the reason it's going to be the second layer in is the customer on this one wants a custom engraving on the top piece. And so this one's going to be the second. I didn't want to usually use it on the top. It's got this little spot here. This is the first piece. This will be the second piece down that allows for the jar to sit in the hole. But if you look, if I just put this piece on there and then the bee door is here, it would block the bees from being able to get to the nectar. So that second piece is just basically to make it sturdier and add enough of a gap for the bees, because I want this to be flush with this piece of wood here like that, so that it doesn't interfere with the bees getting to the drinking fountain there. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this to the side, and I'm gonna load the next burn onto this piece. I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna make this one the one that has the actual bee door in it. It's got a hole that the bees can go through. So I'm gonna go ahead and load this one up. All right, my second burn file is in, or second piece of this burn file is in. I'm just gonna frame it out right quick. This is actually that piece that I had thought about using for the top, but I have decided that I'm not going to do that because this one has a couple of little spots on it that I just don't like. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this one to go where the bee door is. And if you notice, I'm trying to frame around this sapwood right here. I really don't want that white sapwood in the cut, so I'm framing around that best I can. And here we go on this one. This one is very similar to this piece, with the only exception is it's got an opening right here so that the bees can climb in to get to the center. So we'll let that one burn, and I'll check back with you here in a minute. All right, guys, I got the second piece cut out. I try to get all these little pieces off of here so they don't build up in between cuts. Got one little spot back here that's wanting to stick, and as you can see, it's because there's that little tiny knot there. Now, luckily, it's not a very big knot, and I'm just gonna go the opposite direction and it'll break out. It actually broke away pretty clean, but I'm gonna just touch that up a little on the edge there with my knife just to make sure I don't have anything hanging out. But that's the second piece of this build, and this will be below that piece, and basically that's going to provide the doorway for the bees to go in through. It's a 1/4 inch gap because this is 1/4 inch stock. First thing I want to do is update my overlay for my camera and make sure this is where I want it, and then I'm going to frame it. Oh, I got a knot in a really bad place, guys. I'm going to try to slide this one piece over toward the edge of the wood to try to get off of that knot best I can, especially with the hole. If the knot gets the edge of it, I'm good with that, but I definitely don't want that knot in the hole because that'll be a mess trying to get that cut. I might have to break out a drill bit, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to frame this and see. But that knot right there is in a really bad spot. So it's going to work around it. Like I said, one of the benefits of actually having a woodworking shop with your laser is if it doesn't cut through it, I've got a nice little bandsaw with a thin blade on it over there that I can finish it out with. All right, so that's framed out as about as good as I'm gonna get that. So I'm gonna go ahead and send this burn, and we'll see how it works out with the knot. Like I said, if I can just keep my dowel hole off that knot, I can live with having to finish it out with the bandsaw. All right, I got the last set of pieces cut out here. Look at all these little round, tiny bits out of the way. And here is the top plate. That's the one that has the engraving on it. And this will be the, well, it's supposed to be the, it's supposed to be a flat one, but apparently I selected the wrong one, so I've got an extra one of these. But we got a knot that was right there on the edge, so I had to kind of crack that loose. So yeah, guys, I don't know what's going on with me today, but I'm struggling. This was supposed to be a solid piece, and for some reason I made two of the others. But anyway, this is the way it's going to go together. So I'm going to burn one more piece, and actually I kind of like the looks of that. That'll give me a little deeper hole for the bees to play in. So I'm just going to do one more piece and put the sandwich the piece to the bottom there, and we'll be done with that. All right, got the last piece done finally. No mistakes on that one. Got this little bit of wood left that'll be used for later. So I've got all 4 pieces or 5 pieces in this case put together. All that's left is to put some glue on it, put some dowels in there, and we will have ourselves a bee feeder. And you can look underneath these 2 pieces. The bottom of that lid is to where the bees can get to it and actually get the sugar water out of there. So I'm gonna move over to the table and glue these and go ahead and put the dowels in. All right, I got all the pieces cut out now, and this is gonna be my top piece that's gonna go on the very top. So I'm going to apply a small amount of glue between these pieces so that they stay stuck together and don't try to do their own thing even with the dowels in place. So all I'm going to do is run the glue right around the center here for the most part so that they'll adhere there. All right. And the one thing that you got to watch for is on this last one, you really don't have a circle to go by. And then what I'll wind up doing here is I just try to make sure that I get my glue spread out enough to where it's gonna do a securely bonded glue up, and it doesn't take much of this stuff. It'll hold. So I'm just going to take that. That is my bottom piece, and I'm going to try to make sure that I orient those the way that I want them as I put them together, so that any kind of like little imperfections or anything like that that I may not want on the front face will be to the back, out of sight at least, because we are working with real wood here. So I'm going to turn this one this way, and all I've got to do is just, like I said, just wipe this glue in to give me a little bit better coverage, and stack these guys. And then once I get them stacked, we'll put the dowel pins, drive those in, and it'll hold it together. And I usually just put a clamp on it just for good measure to make sure that everything stays where I put it. And that's about all I'm gonna have to do on this. It's a pretty easy little design. All right, this is the one that's got that one little spot that I don't like. I'm gonna put it on the back so that it's not over here by the B door. And then this is our very top piece. This is the one that has the laser engraving on it. And the laser engraving goes right above the entrance for the bees. So get that glue on there. I'm gonna turn that one around this way. And so I've got all the pieces stacked, got them together. Now I've got to put my dowel in. Got my little trusty hammer, and I'm gonna cut me some pieces of this dowel to use. And the key to these is to make sure you have the pieces lined up when you go to put these in. I've got this, the tolerances on these holes is really tight, so it actually takes a little bit of a lick to get them to go in. So I got that one to go through that one. That's all the way through on that piece, but now I've got to get it lined up with the next one. Being that these are laser cut, the holes should line up fairly well. That should be through 2 of them. And once you get 2 of these guys in, the third one is actually the other 2. It's actually not quite as challenging. All right, so I got them all 4 drove through. And now, this guy right here is really handy for this. All you got to do is set that blade on top of this wood, make sure that it's square with it, and just ease it through. And it cuts them off nice and flush. And then just to make sure that my dowels are flush and to knock off any little smoke damage on there, I'll hit with a sander real quick. there you have it, guys. Got it put together. Got the little door for the bees. The engravings on the front, and of course this is just your standard wide mouth jar. And you can see how on the inside right here, the bees can slide through this little hole right here and go into this channel, and then that's where they sit and they can eat the nectar and stuff without being exposed to predators or whatnot. Because one of the things that I wanted to do when I built this was to try to give the bees a place they could go, to where if there was a bird of some type sitting there watching them, by the time they land, they go in here and they get underneath this, they're pretty much out of harm's way. So that was the thought in my design anyway. And it looks cool. It doesn't tip over really easy, and it's easy to change. All you gotta do is take this out. If you have more than one jar, you just swap the jars. Take this lid off of this jar that's got the little tiny holes punched in it, and put it on your new jar. And then you, the way that I like to do it is once I put the lid on, I just turn the jar upside down and let it get through dripping, and then just carefully set it in the hole, and you have a bee feeder. But I hope this was interesting to you, and if it was, feel free to give me a little feedback. And everybody have a good day.